The first international event of the year is in the books. That means that we are 1/4 of the way through the whole esports calendar year, which might not seem like a lot. I know this is going to make me on Unk status immediately. I don't care. Time passes so quick when you become a little bit older, whenever you have other life responsibilities and things going on. And it especially picks up in the spring and summer, which is going to be the rest of the year. The next 6 months is going to fly by. So do me a favor. We'll get into the overreactions here in a minute because that's what we're all here for. But just take a moment to stop and appreciate how freaking amazing LoL Esports is, how much fun all of this is around us, regardless of any complaints or any bad things we might have going on. It's pretty great, but we're here to overreact. You might not think this is one, but it is. Khan said, the tournament was actually fun to watch. Fans need to stop whining about formats and saying things don't matter because it's not the exact thing they want. I wholeheartedly agree. Look, we will touch on some format things in a minute. We'll touch on some teams, regions, etc. But at its baseline, this was a fun week-long international event to start the year, to kick things off as we go into the more serious parts as time goes on. You can't have everything be this hyper-competitive worlds thing. I do agree there are some tweaks that need to be made to this, in my opinion. But at a baseline, it was still a ton of fun to watch. The storylines were incredible throughout. Even if I'm part of the region who has the most amount of room to hate this, given what happened. And yet I'm still sitting here telling you that it was a blast and I would do it all over again without the shred of a doubt. So we need to do a better job as a community of being more vocal if we enjoy things and not just let the negative side of things really take over. So I do think this is an overreaction in the positive sense, but it's justified because we should be celebrating when we have fun with things. I enjoyed First Stand. I just didn't enjoy getting my ass beat, or at least my regions, whatever you want to say. Jumping over to TikTok, we got to talk about the winners. Scary thing is, T1 and Gen G are basically on Hanwha Life's level as well. All the series of those three teams were basically coin flips. They did all go to Game 5. And DK is also really good. LCK is on another level this year. We'll talk about the comparisons between the regions here in a minute because there's one take that I'm specifically saving for that individual comment. But I do want to note on the LCK, it is wild how good that region is. Again, this is my first full year of following everything when it comes to the LCK, and I'm glad I did because it is bluntly clear that they are just a step above everybody else. But it's not even Hanwha Life clutched up on so many different Game 5s to even get to this point. And the worst part is what's going to happen next international tournament when there's multiple Korean teams there. It's Hanwha Life, this has got to be the hardest golden road for them to do because the hardest part of all this might actually just be winning their domestic split, other than trying to beat T1 at Worlds, which is just a whole other animal for some godforsaken reason. But the LCK genuinely is the best region in the world. And that segues into the next take that I want to say. AMAX said Korea will sweep all three internationals this year, but the rest of the field, LTA, LCP, LEC, and LPL, will be more competitive with one another than ever before. Look, China specifically kind of has a problem on their hands, which many of us kind of saw coming. This is the ripple effects, in my opinion, of one, them not taking this utterly serious. If Dom is kind of the LPL representative for the West in the same way that Kadril is the Korean representative for the West in terms of being involved with all the voices, being in touch with the community conversation, it was clear that the LPL didn't fully take this split seriously, and that people kind of had an idea that when Top made it, it could possibly be a problem and that they would choke as they have on the international stage consistently. But that said, don't forget there were laws that were set in place 2 or 3 years ago that limit the amount of time that kids can spend playing League of Legends to 2 hours a week. There is a lot of rollback because people kind of got addicted to gaming, and esports saw some repercussions of that in China. That, yes, I do believe wholeheartedly the gap seems to be widening, right? At least this year, between China and Korea. Now, we'll see come MSI. It could just be a top esports choke thing, and if China comes back louder and prouder and BLG is there and the top teams that you expect to be at this tournament go and actually perform well, fine. Then I'll be able to walk this back and maybe this is an overreaction. But all the signs have kind of been there for a bit when it comes to viewership and just general interest in the LPL that, yeah, it might be slipping. The gap might be closing between Europe and China. North America, but at minimum, if the LCK is going to dominate these tournaments, having a bottom four, like if the LCK is S tier and everybody else is just like kind of together, that should make these tournaments more fun for sure. But that relates into a comment that I saw that was a perfect overreaction on TikTok. I'm actually going to combine 2 TikTok comments for this one because I think they work well together. Camel Toe Trucker, phenomenal name. Says, first stand needs a bigger venue. It's an international grand final, but it felt less hype than a seasonal playoff. And UI Unlimited said, I would love each team to have 2 regions. I think the domestic formats to qualify need work too. I'm not going to comment on the domestic formats individually because we will be touching on the LTA announcement when it comes as part of Fearless this upcoming week. But I wholeheartedly agree that having any international event in the same location that we spend 9 months out of the freaking year at is an abomination and should not be happening under any circumstances. And Riot needs to get their shit together to figure out what they're doing wrong on these international events. It is wild that we have homestands for various different teams, including K-Corp, T1, Genji. I think KT Rolster's doing one now. Mad Lions, Koi. We're doing all these different events that are selling out massive, massive arenas. And you're forcing us to be in these small areas, assumedly because you can't run a profitable international event outside of that and like scale it down to the point where a 2,000 seat theater is enough. Because if you've never been to Broadway in New York or any place that has like a 2,500 seat theater, it is an incredible environment that would be great for esports if we could freaking put it there. So Riot, what are we doing on that front? Dear God, do not let another international event happen at the freaking studio or I'm going to lose my mind. Oh my God. But on top of that, I will add this. I think that the amount of teams that go to these events should be changed slightly. And I realized this on stream yesterday. The problem with having one LCK team at the tournament, if the level of the LPL has dropped off to the point where like the bottom 4 are just kind of competing, is that you're going to have some really uninteresting finals. In the case that the LPL does step up, fine. But I think there should be at minimum 2 teams from every region going to these events. We only have 5 major regions total. I'm not saying that MSI and First Stand need to have identical formats, even if I would like it to be like a major worlds situation. But what I would personally do is I would say 10 teams at First Stand. 1 team from each group gets eliminated. Then you go into a single elimination 8-team bracket that goes from there. MSI keeps the format that we know, but goes 2 teams from the bottom 3 regions and 3 teams from the top 2 regions. That way there's 16, and you do whatever format you want to drop it down to 8 total teams for a double elimination bracket from there. You can eliminate teams quickly, do whatever you want, that's fine. But full double elim in the same way that we have for MSI, that is the thing that makes that tournament unique compared to most. And then for Worlds, you go 4 teams from China, 4 teams from Korea, or whatever the top 2 regions are, and 3 from the rest. So that would be 15 plus 8 is 23. And you need to find a way, I mean, maybe you need to make it 24, and then you go from 24 to 16, so you eliminate 8 teams in a play-in stage. Like, I think that's perfect, personally. Because unfortunately, like, there's no world where we should not have at least 2 LCK teams at every event, purely because the LCK is just a better region than everybody else. Until everybody is closer in general standings, I'm sorry, you need at least 2 teams there so that we can have an interesting final at this point, because otherwise, like, no offense to K-Corp and their finals performance, they did as good as they could. They got blown out the shit. But I do want to end this video on a positive overreaction, which is Brandy saying, Hama Life Golden Row, but more importantly said EU is truly back. And on TikTok, simple as this. K-Corp did good, to be honest. I am so happy. Not as just as somebody that like likes K-Corp as an org, but more importantly, I just think it's good for Europe as a whole to have more than one team that can step up like this on the international stage and actually look pretty good, because Europe for the longest time was not beating the G2 only team that we could send to international events allegations. The same thing that North America had dealt with for a long period of time, where Cloud9 was the only team that could, for some godforsaken reason, get out of group stage. Luckily now, since then, we've had NRG and FlyQuest be able to do it. There's these and it provides an interesting and compelling narrative beyond just the one team that you were solely relying on for a long period of time. I think this is incredibly good for Europe. I love everything that Europe is building from a domestic level at this point. It amazed me the amount of K-Corp fans that traveled to Korea for this event. I know there was some hubbub about like how they cheered at a venue, which some people felt was disrespectful, to which I would say, from what I've heard, and maybe I'm missing something, I don't think it was that bad. Sure, was it disrespectful to like Korean tradition and culture and how they cheer? Sure, but they're French fans traveling for their team. They're allowed to cheer how they won in the stadium. You're not like, sure, you're in Korea's home. It's then the job of the home fans to sell out and make sure the K-Corp fans can't come in. It's that simple. Now, I know like a lot of the K-Corp fans were like in the lobby and doing it there, but again, you gave them their own space and let them be. Call that disrespectful all you want. Personally, I call that like fun. I think that's a team that just simply travels well, and as long as you're not breaking shit and breaking laws, you're fine. Like, they're bringing their own fan culture with it. But man, Callista's just that guy. That kid can perform. Let me tell you what. If the growth that we saw from K-Corp over the course of this tournament is what we can expect from Europe going forward, then yeah, we're in for a good world. The same for the LCP, who we can no longer write off, unfortunately, as a minor region. Not only are they a major region by default status and like what they actually are given by Riot, on top of that, they're playing like one as well. They beat China. They beat Europe the first time around. They beat North America's ass. At some point, we do have to stop calling them a minor region, and I think this is officially that time. The LCP is a formidable foe, as they kind of always have been, but like, for some reason, Riot, like it was always the big four, but now it truly is the big five that are here to stay and compete, even though only one of that big five is likely going to go home with the entire tournament at this point. So that's it for the kind of tame overreactions on this one. I don't really think there was that much drama since like the last time that we've talked. Everything seems pretty cut and dry, especially with Hanwha Life winning in the way that they did. There's really not much to like overreact from. It's kind of status quo, and I think everybody is, for the most part, on the same general wavelength that, yes, the LCK is just them. They're the best. But we'll see how this goes. We got 2 more international events this year. We have domestic play kicking up in a little less than, I think, 3 weeks. February 5th is the start for North America. I'm not sure about the other regions. But if you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, subscribe, turn on that bell to get notified of any time I put out a video. I'm going to be still putting out 3 videos a week, every week. They're in the off season. I'm curious to see if teams put out the same amount of content as I do, but we'll see. That includes a tier 2 video talking about some of the drama there and whether North America's like underlyings are going to cause some big problems for tier 1 as well in the upcoming weeks. We got the LTA format update, which is coming later this week. The second that video drops, you'll have a full explanation of my reaction here on whether that will help save this region or whether we are still in a death spiral or not. And we have a lot more coming out over the next 2 weeks before the pit and the rendezvous return for Split 2. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your overreactions on social media, on Twitter, on TikTok. I love you all. I gotta go to the gym after I edit this video. So yeah, have a good week. See ya. Bye-bye.